morning. Donald Trump once again dominating the headlines, this time getting Dr. Ben Carson's endorsement. Listen to this.
He is actually a very intelligent man who cares deeply about America. There are two different Donald Trumps. There's the one you see on the stage, and there's the one who's very cerebral, sits there and considers things very carefully. You can have a very good conversation with him. And that's the Donald Trump that you're going to start seeing more and more of right now. And some people said, but, well, you know, he said terrible things about you. How can you support him? Well, first of all, we buried the hatchet. That was political stuff. And, you know, that happens in American politics.
Joining us now, Amy Tarkanian, former chairman of the Nevada Republican Party and a Kasich supporter. You know, Donald Trump, obviously the man of the moment. He is leading, and your candidate, John Kasich, hoping to make a stand in Ohio. Let's assume for a moment, Amy, that he does win. What's the strategy for the nomination? Because it looks like he'll be so far away from that 1274, what is it, 1237 number.
Right. You know, that's going to be very interesting to watch. And yes, we do have to point out that he's going to do extremely well in Ohio. And of course, he's banking on winning his home state. And if he can't win his home state, he has been very open and honest about backing out of the race. And Marco Rubio hasn't exactly said that, so I'm not exactly sure what his plan or strategy is as well. For Governor Kasich, I'm assuming maybe he's planning on there being a brokered convention at this point, or maybe, I'm guessing, maybe a possible VP spot, if that's Donald Trump, if he's our nominee, or maybe another cabinet spot. I'm not exactly sure on what his strategy is, but that's kind of what seems to be, you know, the conversation.
It's interesting you say that because, you know, a lot of people said this election process has been interesting where people have hung on just a little bit longer than they probably should have, and it's been ultimately sort of selfish if indeed their goals were to, say, for instance, to stop a Donald Trump. Now, everyone has suspected for a long time that Governor Kasich is hanging around this whole process just so that he ultimately maybe could have some sort of playing cards if there is a big deal at the convention and work his way into that VP slot. Has he been thinking about this for a while, maybe perhaps just hanging on so he could be Donald Trump's VP?
Well, I haven't had that conversation with Governor Kasich, but I can tell you, obviously, he's not running for VP. He's not running for a cabinet spot, but his delegate numbers are much lower than, say, Donald Trump's. So you have to be realistic. But his approval rating is sky high in the state of Ohio. He's brought in over 400,000 jobs. Last year alone, they created more small businesses than, I guess, in the entire state's history. So he's done very well there in the state of Ohio, and it would be silly for him to stop before he actually went to his home state. So I don't think he's being selfish at all. I think he's just allowing the process to play the way that it should with letting the people choose.
Well, Donald Trump has said this week he's starting to talk about your Kasich a little bit more, and he reiterated it this morning that Kasich is an absentee governor and that somehow he's letting down the people in Ohio. And of course, we know trade is going to be a central issue there. Do you think Kasich has the wrong idea with respect to him embracing some of these trade deals that other people think have lost us a lot of jobs?
Listen, once again, I have not talked to Governor Kasich on this particular issue, but you don't get an approval rating of over 60% if you haven't been doing a very good job. So for Donald Trump to be calling him an absentee governor, I think that's silly. And we did hear him talk with Ben Carson earlier when Ben endorsed him, saying that they had apologized, that it was bridge under the water, some of the harsh words that were exchanged. And maybe, once again, this is just some harsh words that he's using with Governor Kasich because he's still in the race.
All right, Amy, thank you very much. And I was going to say, go Rebels. I got a feeling that, what's your relationship?
That was my father-in-law. My father-in-law went to heaven last year, but I'm related to him through my husband, Danny Tarkanian. Oh,
wow. Just an amazing, amazing run he had with that team. Thanks a lot, and nice having you on, Amy.
Thank you so much.
Well, of course, we know the major theme that Trump keeps hammering is voter turnout. Here's what he had to say earlier today.
They see what's happening. You know, we're getting millions and millions of people, additional people that the Republican Party has never had before. It's the biggest story. I said it last night at the debate. It's the biggest story in politics is what's happening. We are having millions and millions of people come up and vote for the Republicans. They get out, they register Republican. I've had so many people tell me, I've never voted Republican in my life. I left the Democrats in order to register as a Republican so I could vote for you. Independents, Democrats, and you see it. We're up 65%, more than that. Millions of people more. And that's what I'm saying. The Republicans now want to embrace it. I mean, I see it. They want to embrace it.
Joining us now, Democratic strategist Nomiki Combs. How do I pronounce? Is that
Const.
Const. That was close. Oh, that's why. Okay. Well, let's talk about this mass exodus of Democratic voters.
Oh, massive.
Mass
They're
exodus.
fleeing the party.
Well, we've seen one thing we have seen though is so far through the primary process, the GOP candidates have gotten 12 million votes, 5 million more than the Democratic candidates. That's gotta worry your party somewhat.
Absolutely, and I think part of that is because we didn't really have as competitive of a primary as we would have liked.
It's tooth and nail. What are you talking about?
Well, no, I mean the DNC shut out quite a few candidates. They set up the rules so that the
Oh, you mean out of the gate?
Exactly. In August, Hillary Clinton not only had half of the superdelegates support her, but they endorsed her, which is, it's not just pledge, they endorsed her. They're out on the trail, you know, shaking hands, getting checks written for her. I mean, this is a primary that, there is no primary.
But you know what, Nomiki, I think you're pointing to something different, to maybe a greater issue for them in a general election. I think this is what Ben Carson said over and over again today. He talked about political operatives and parties thwarting the will of the people. If these superdelegates are already pledging and endorsing and campaigning for Hillary Clinton against the will of the people, this is a dangerous game that the Democratic establishment is playing.
Well, against the will of half of the people. When you look at, and Lee can explain this more because she's a pollster, but when you look at half of the Democratic Party, those under 50, they're anti-establishment. They're sick of the way of the 90s era Democratic Party. They want to see changes because they haven't seen the effects. I mean, these are the populists. These are the people, the Reagan Democrats. These are the millennials who've been hurt by the economy. These are members of minority communities that have been ignored. And then when you look at the older Democratic Party, they trust the Democratic Party establishment, mainly because I think it's a risk for them to go to another option, which they don't know about yet.
I think the real eye-opener was when Massachusetts top state election officials said 20,000 Democrats have left the Democratic Party. They switched to majority, 16,500 be independent. The rest went to GOP. You've seen that potentially happen in Florida and other states across the country. Why? The state election official in the Bay State said Trump.
Yeah. Although I will say for Massachusetts, Hillary got more votes than all of almost as more than all of Republicans added up together.
Right.
You're not going to lose Massachusetts. Okay, you're not going to.
Right.
So you got one in the bank.
We're talking about a trend.
I know.
States
But the
like
overall
Arizona,
trend.
the western states, I mean, these are states that.
Well, we just had Barry
have to be
Bennett say
concerned about.
48,000 have done the same thing in Pennsylvania. Again, a purple state, if you will. And again, if Hillary is, if there's a coronation of Hillary Clinton against the will of the people, to borrow Ben Carson's theme and words again, I think she hands the election to the GOP.
I'm scared of that. I think that in a very strange way, Bernie Sanders is actually, and I'm a Bernie Sanders supporter, helping Donald Trump because he's locked down a lot of those left-leaning independents, some of those Reagan Democrats, but those are people who are just firmly against Hillary Clinton. So if Bernie Sanders is not the nominee, and I do hope he is, those people are going to go to Donald Trump.
That's a fascinating thing. Just demolish the U.S. economy. He would turn us into Venezuela.
And I'm sorry, and Donald Trump, who's gone bankrupt 4 times.
I mean, his socialism has been a failure. That failure has been a resounding flop around the world.
I think he's for a New Deal, and the New Deal was great for America, and that's what he's proposing.
He supported Fidel Castro. He supported Nicaragua. He has been on the record saying that. Yes, he has been on the record saying that.
Well,
I mean, if red lines are a sign of a strong economy, wow, you don't want to.
I would think, though, that maybe Clinton would need. Maybe Clinton would need Hillary Clinton would need to bring Bernie in the way Donald Trump is bringing in his former rivals.
I don't know if that's going to happen right now.
All right, guys. Well, once again, the big story today, Donald Trump getting the endorsement of Dr. Ben Carson and the Dow up almost 200 points.